Welcome to Cinephile Maniacs.
Welcome back to Cinephile Maniacs. It's Friday the 13th, at least here in Sweden. I don't know about you guys in Uruguay, but here it is. We follow the Roman calendar.
Yes, and today we're going to be focusing on horror films. Yes, another death metal voice. Hate that. So do you know any actors born on Friday the 13th?
Well, I do believe that Steve Buscemi was born on Friday the 13th, if I'm not mistaken.
On the top of your head?
Yeah, on the top of my head.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We didn't check that.
No.
Okay, so he's actually
knowledge.
born. And I think the Olsen twins as well. But
only one of them.
Yeah, they just split it right through. Okay, so today we're going to start a new competition. As you know, the last one was for the Rossmeyer collection. We've picked two very, very attractive movies. One released by Vinegar Syndrome is the cult Nazi-exploitation classic The Cutthroats, beautifully restored by Vinegar Syndrome. They do a great job.
Sure do.
And also, I have to read this one because it's quite a riveting subtitle. Sukabandeka, the movie 2, Counter-Attack of the Kasama Sisters. So these are quite hard to get movies. And what do you have to do to compete, to enter the competition?
All you have to do to win these bad boys is to subscribe right here. Subscribe to us right here on YouTube. Then you have a chance of winning one of these, and then we will do a lottery.
Yes, 1st of June we'll pick a winner and notify you by smoke signals.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're focusing on horror today, and what's your take on the horror genre?
The horror genre it's pretty complex because I like the idea of horror films, but at the same time there aren't that many good horror films out there. It's very easy to make a bad horror film. That's at least my take on it, and It's very hard to make a good one. At the same time, I do the few ones of them that are good I do enjoy thoroughly. It's one of my favorite genres when done right.
Yes,
I believe.
As usual, I think that's quite boring, but I have to agree with you. There are, particularly in my case, I like the artistic horror that transgresses boundaries and really have a great shock factor. We're gonna have a top 5 for you, a very interesting top 5 later in the program, where you get the notion of what I'm talking about. Okay, so if we're talking about villains in horror films, what's the scariest villain according to you?
Well, I think you have to go back to my childhood. Maybe it's not... well, it is a villain per se, but I would say one of the most scarier villains is the Xenomorph from the Alien franchise. Just it's very... I saw Alien when I was just a kid, and it was very scary. And at the same time, I feel to this day, the Xenomorph is one of the most scarier beings because it's... the way, it implants its seed in you and it grows and it bursts out of your rib cage and so forth, and it's so overpowered. It's OP. It's hard to kill it. So that's one of my scarier villains, creatures in horror films, I believe.
Yeah.
What, do you have something?
Yeah, I would have to go with the psychopath in the brilliant movie Headless. It's indescribable display of perversion, and yet there is a psychological background, and he does things that are we can't even mention on the show. So if you haven't seen Headless, go check it out, and you'll be I think he'll be headlessly overthrown. Okay, so horror movies are obviously the main purpose of horror movies is to actually scare you.
Yeah,
so
to get an emotion.
Is there anything that you're triggered by more than anything else? Do you have a phobia where movie creators have a head start?
Public speaking. No, yeah, one of my biggest phobias, and I guess that ties in with my fear of the xenomorph because it's very outlandish and non-human, and that's one of the reasons why one of my biggest phobias is insects.
Okay,
hate those bastards.
Great. What is coincidence that I've prepared a small review. We're gonna let Frej talk a little bit about insects on film. So let's start off. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's start with the 1990 horror film Arachnophobia. This is the queen of the nest.
From 1990, you say? I think I saw that one when I was a kid, actually. I haven't seen it since.
So what's your take on this? Is this scary?
Spiders, yeah, spiders are scary. In the same time, I kind of like spiders because they eat other insects.
Okay, so not very scary. The next one is leeches. This is from the movie Slither, and as you can see, it's not a very pleasant situation to be in. What's your take on leeches?
Hate leeches. I remember seeing Stand By Me when I was a kid, and the guy got a leech on his scrotum, I believe, and it was just one of the most horrific things I could imagine. Yeah, hate leeches.
Okay, this is obviously what the fuck's that? This is obviously not a real insect. It's a hybrid between a human and an insect. It's from the horror film Infestation.
Yeah.
You think this is scary?
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't want to meet a insect-human hybrid, especially one that is like a spider putting you in a cocoon of some sort. No, that wouldn't be fun at all.
Yeah, it's quite like it's very similar to you. This cocooned person. I think they thought about that when making.
I'm blackout drunk.
Okay, the fourth one is from the movie Phase 4, and this is I do believe it's a close-up of an ant.
Yeah.
What about ants?
You know, ants in their natural form, you know, being tiny, I don't give a shit. But in Ant-Man, they had a big ant that was like the size of a dog, and that one actually creeped me out.
Okay, so ants. And the final one is Scolopendra polymorpha, and this centipede or something similar, was used in the brilliant film by Rodriguez, Los Chidos.
Yeah.
It was a torture scene where they had one of these in the face. So what about this one?
I had forgotten about that.
Yes.
You remind me. Well, centipedes, they are the worst fucking thing ever. They are so nasty, and I hate them. I never want to be close to one.
Okay.
Ever.
So which one of these 5 do you think is the most horrific?
Well, it's the centipede. It's just evil and nasty.
Yeah. Okay. So the centipede is the worst one, but in many horror films, and not even horror films, dramas as well, and thrillers, there is one type of insect which occurs more than any other. Can you think of which one that is?
Flies?
No. And to spice things up a little, I brought a sample.
Nay! Fuck off! Oh!
Don't move out of the picture. You have to review this. So this is maggots. What? Shall we open that up?
No, don't open it. No, let them be in the bag. No. I'm not gonna have maggots in
the studio.
In the studio, yeah. Oh.
Okay, so what about these?
Oh, they're disgusting. Oh.
What would it take to get you to eat one of these?
Oh, no way. Not in a million years. Never. No money in... I still can't... This is very surreal. This is extremely surreal for me. I can't grasp that this is actually happening. Ugh.
You don't want to let them out?
No, not at all. I mean...
I think it's time.
No, don't.
Okay, so I think we can. It's safe to say that it's a completely different matter to actually meeting the insects than watching them on a screen. Well, okay, that's it for now. I'll see you in a bit. I've teleported myself to the Cinephile Maniacs vault, where there are literally thousands of films on DVD, Blu-ray, VHS and even Super 8. This week's quick tip is Fetus by Brian Paulin. Would you look at that cover? It's really an amazing artwork, and it's one of those covers where you wonder, do the film live up to the expectations created by the artwork? And it really does. This is an excellent film by someone who is clearly interested in special effects. It's really, really gory, and you should check it out. Available on morbidvision.com. Head over there for those titles and others by Brian Paulin, including Bone Sickness and Cryptic Plasm. So, I'm here to undertake a Jean Rollin marathon. I'm going to be watching 10 Jean Rollin films back to back. That's roughly 15 hours runtime. So I'll have to do without food. I'll be drinking blood, obviously, but that's another matter. I'll get back to you once I've finished that Odyssey and give you a brief commentary on each movie and rank them for you. In the meantime, for those of you not familiar with Jean Rollin, here's a quick summary. Jean Rollin was a French film director born in 1938 in Neuilly-sur-Seine. He is most known for his entries into the vampire genre, creating films that were unmistakable in style, often including poetic dialogue and gothic settings. Apparently, he had a fetish for the sea, as many of his films are concluded at the same shore. During his career, spanning from 1958 to 2010, he directed 52 films. But as many are adult features made under the pseudonym Michel Gentil, they are missed by the mainstream audience. Rollin acquired cult status even though his films were rarely profitable. He died 72 years old in 2010 and rests at Père Lachaise in Paris. It's one day later and I've seen 10 films by Jean Rollin that I didn't see earlier. It was an interesting project, mainly because you got the chance to evaluate the movies, comparing them to themselves within the director's competence. So here's a quick commentary on those films presented in the order in which I saw them. The Grapes of Death is one of 2 zombie films made by Rollin and gets 2 garlics in grade. Starring Brigitte Lahaie, it is set in rural France where people turn into killer zombies by infected grapes. What could be more French than that? It contains more gore than the usual Rollin flick, which is great, but the story is somewhat lame. Shot in extremely cold conditions, apparently the actors had difficulties delivering the lines. The second film I watched was The Nude Vampire, one of Rollin's many vampire flicks. This gets 2 garlics. A suicide cult has kidnapped a vampire hoping to unlock the secrets of immortality, but soon run into trouble as a turtleneck-clad leader of the vampires start a counterattack. The highlight of this film is the twins Catherine and Marie-Pierre Castel, who often participated in Rollin's films. Other than that, this is one of the less interesting entries by Rollin featuring nocturnal bloodsuckers. On to another gothic vampire story shot in 3 weeks, Lips of Blood. I really like this one and therefore award it 4 garlics. The story about a man trying to unlock secrets of his past is well written and keeps your attention all the way from the first to the last frame. Adult actress Martine Grambeau has a role in Lips of Blood, which is also filled with naked vampiresses, one of the best films Rollin made. Jumping from the 70s to the 2000s, the next film was The Fiancé of Dracula. It is only awarded 1 garlic, as this is clearly the work of a man that has passed his best before date. The story is shamelessly linear, the acting performances shoddy, and the cinematography quite bad and very unlike the style of Rollin.
In the Five Garlic film, The Shiver of the Vampires, a newlywed couple end up in a gothic castle on their wedding night, and it doesn't take long before the vampire cult that inhabits the premises take an interest in the beautiful bride. This hippie-fueled festival of cemetery shots and gothic settings is by far the most accomplished film concerning imagery. The script is well written and the acting performances more than adequate. A feast for the eye. The Rape of the Vampire is one of the first that Rollin made and certainly one of his most unique. 3 garlics is given to this film that is more an art house film than a horror flick. This black and white melodrama in 2 parts has a somewhat incoherent plot, maybe because it was improvised by Rollin after he lost the script the 3rd day of shooting. And its main value is a composition of photography. The scene where 2 vampires is dueling in front of a fire is gorgeous, but all in all there are too many aspects that comes short for this to be a real favourite. The Iron Rose is by far the worst of the 10 I watched in this marathon. 1 garlic is generous and the movie can easily be summed up by saying, a couple spend the night at the cemetery. That's it. The occasional beauty of the Iron Rose is created by the gothic objects that are filmed rather than the composition of the film itself. A really boring piece that Rollin should have skipped making. The Demoniacs is a story about 2 shipwrecked girls getting violated by a vicious gang of pirates, then seeking revenge by acquiring supernatural powers. The grade is bumped from 2 garlics to 3 by the participation of Ruslana doppelganger Joël Coeur. Containing many entertaining scenes, the plot is still a little thin and leaves more to wish for. The main part of the Demoniacs takes place in a tavern and on a beach. The panic scene, 1 hour and 9 minutes into the film, is hilarious and alone worth the watch. Speaking of doppelgangers, how about Roxanne Mesquida and the leading actress of our next film, Christiane Coupé? She stars in The Escapees, a 3 garlic film that tells a story about 2 girls who escapes an asylum, ends up with a group of travelling exotic dancers, and go through hell. This film is very unlike the rest of Rollin's work, more a drama than a horror film. The acting is well above what I've become accustomed to, and the story is quite interesting. The Escapees would have benefited from a different ending though. The final film of the marathon is one of Rollin's most famous ones, Fascination. There might be a reason for that, as it is awarded 4 garlics. Fascination, starring Brigitte Lahaye, pretty much sums up all trademarks that have made Rollin a cult director. Bloodthirsty vampires, nude women, gothic settings, beautiful cinematography, and a loosely coherent plot. Definitely one of the favorites. So now you'll know which Rollin movies to stay clear of and which ones to enjoy. And just to recap, the best ones were in 3rd place, Fascination. In 2nd place, Lips of Blood. And the best Jean Rollin out of these 10, there are more obviously, was Shiver of the Vampires. So go check that out. I'm teleporting back to the studio to join Frej. So for our review this episode, we've chosen Bite to continue with the theme of insects. And we don't know anything about this movie except one thing. What's that?
Apparently, according to IMDb, in the trivia section, 2 people fainted and 1 person vomited during a screening of this film during some film festival.
Fantasia Film Festival.
Yeah. So that's a pretty good outset for a horror film. I mean, people fainting and vomiting, that's the kind of reaction you want when you make a horror film.
You want to have a bath of vomit when the screening is over.
People to feel bad.
So we're going to head out and vomit, and we'll be back shortly.
Bite is a 2015 unrated horror film by Chad Archibald with a runtime of 90 minutes. It has been screened at least 13 film festivals and premiered on the internet May 6th, 2016.
Casey is about to marry Jared, and so she and her best friends heads to a paradise island to wreak havoc one final time. During a bathing session, Casey gets bitten by an unidentified object, but thinks nothing much about that. Upon returning to Canada, Casey discovers strange marks on her body, and her stomach starts making noises that would fit on a Motorhead album. Slowly she's turning into something evil and unpleasant, and naturally that creates problems both with the fiancé, his mother and Casey's friends. But is that the biggest of her concerns?
Casey, you're scaring me.
What happened?
She's a monster.
Who is?
So we finished the viewing of Bite, and to accompany us in this review, I have something in the bag.
What?
No, I'm just kidding. Okay, all the insects are gone. Okay, so this horror film has an idea based on the contraction infection theme. There are some horror films that played on this. What do you think about this idea, the set out?
Well, the whole idea of making a horror film around a person getting infected from a bite, as in this case, or anything, is very good because it taps into one of those fears that everyone can relate to, everything from getting bitten by a mosquito or a tick or even a dog, getting rabies or malaria or whatever. It's something we all share, we all have in common. We don't want to get bitten by anything, we don't want to get infected and be exposed to some sort of metamorphosis.
Yes, and I think one of the great potentials in that idea is that there are so many diseases that are unknown to man as of yet.
Yeah.
So we can agree that the premise for this movie, the idea, gives Chad Archibald the opportunity to create something good. Now, what do you think about the acting performances? Because acting is really lays out the foundation for something being scary or not.
Yeah, exactly. Unfortunately, in this case, the acting is far below average. It's bad.
I would say atrocious, actually.
Yeah. It is extremely bad, and that's just as you said. One of the things in a horror film is to make the acting believable, the characters believable. But these actors, they're worse than porn actors.
And that's a pretty bad grade if it wasn't in the 70s when they were actually quite good. Okay, so the acting performances, I do agree with that. It offered me some laughs from time to time, and I don't think these are real actors.
No,
I think they're friends of the director.
I hope so. They should not quit their day jobs and do acting. I'm sorry. Sure, acting is hard, but some people can do it, some people can't.
Yes.
That's just the way it is.
Yes, okay, so that's not a good thing. Is that the biggest problem of the movie? The acting?
No, unfortunately not. There's an even bigger, more fundamental problem with this film, and that is its script. The script is, just like you said, atrocious. It's ridiculous. It's laughable.
Yeah, I got the thought in my head while watching Bite that this is a modern version of Troll 2. It's not equally as funny, unintentionally funny, but there were many times when you actually thought, like, this guy has no... And Chad Archibald has incidentally written the script as well as directed. And I get the sensation that Mr. Archibald doesn't have a clear notion of what he's writing, what it's going to look like in the end product.
Yeah.
So there are very numerous plot holes in this movie, and a lot of moments you just sitting wondering, why the hell does he include that, and why would she say that in that situation? Why would she continue into this infested apartment, not just leave and stuff like that?
Yeah, exactly. And you know, I completely agree with you there. One of the things was like, it felt like a 15-year-old kid had been sitting down writing dialogue for this relationship, but that 15-year-old kid has never been in a relationship. So it's like, oh, I wonder what adults talk about. Oh, I wonder how adults act. And the same thing, you know, these three main girls say things like that. It's like some guy writing dialogue for women, but he doesn't know what women talk about or how they act when they're by themselves. He didn't know, so he was just guessing, and you felt it. Everything felt so unnatural.
Yeah. So at Fantasia, 2 people fainted, 1 vomit. Well, let's hope they fainted because they thought this was so bad.
Yeah.
And vomited upon the dialogue, perhaps.
Vomited of boredom.
So what's your final verdict? I think it's pretty clear. We don't have time to go into the positive sides of this film because there are none.
No, I want to give this like -5. I don't know if we are allowed to do that, but I'm gonna give it 0.
I think the message went across anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna give it. I'm gonna give it. 0 doesn't exist.
Okay, so 1.
It's 1 out of 5.
1 then.
And
1.
I'll agree with you on that one.
Fainted number 1. As we said in the beginning of this episode, our favorite horror films are those that push boundaries and have some artistic value.
And that's why we've compiled a top 5 list of our favorite extreme horror films.
In 5th place, Subconscious Cruelty by Karim Hussein. This 4-part anthology is a masterpiece of surreal horror. Composed by shocking and artistic images, the greatness of the film is that there is a metaphorical meaning to every scene. Even though these are easily interpreted, Hussein showed that horror films can be intellectually challenging and get the viewer to re-evaluate taken positions. Number 4 is the animated nightmare Where the Dead Go to Die. A brilliant combination of artistic innovation, skilled sound setting, and extremely controversial subjects creates a 95-minute long test of how much your brain can take.
I killed myself the other day.
Oh, now, Sophie? And don't you dare make another sound, sweetheart. Every sound that you make, that's just gonna be another 15 minutes and you get to be tied up there.
I killed myself, and I buried my body underneath the floorboards. Baby, don't cry. Wipe those tears away.
No introduction needed for our number 3. The second part in the Human Centipede trilogy is by far the most extreme. What most people don't understand when watching the Human Centipede is that they are witnessing a marvelous display of meta-cinema. Genius director Tom Six chronologically examined the American pop culture horror, the extreme underground, and comical horror by making the same film in 3 different shapes. The final film in the Vomit Gore series by controversial director Lucifer Valentine splits its audience into 2 camps, both with very strong opinions. We're on the side that regard his films as great works of art, combining disturbing material with an unprecedented ability to instill trepidation in the viewer through horrifying sound work. In first place, the severely underrated masterpiece Begotten is a wordless allegory that is not entirely easy to unlock. Mythical and historical symbolism is mixed for the viewer to interpret and put forth with a deliberately unconventional style. The best extreme horror film ever made.
That's it for today. Next week, you'll have another episode of An Idiot's Guide to Sports. And the sport for next week is boxing. So that will be quite interesting and hopefully painful. Now, if you enjoyed the show, head over to Patreon to support us, claim your rewards, and be a patron of the arts. Also, one of the things you can do to help us out in our artistic, what word to choose this time, strives, is to subscribe. So please, 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 hit the button and be sure to not miss any of the madness that goes on here. Have a nice life, and I'll see you next week. Bye.
I found out that there is a gland in the back of your brain that holds all of your memories, and when you die, it expels the liquid.
You can't let me and your father have a moment to ourselves, can you? You're the most selfish little boy on the planet!